Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about the BBC 500. It's coming to that time of the year again. We are big fans of the 500 words. We've used it in our classroom for many, many years, and it is just a joy to be part of it. And I'm really glad to be joined by Osman, Lucy, Mike, and Simon State, who's going to go through a little bit more about how we can use the power of storytelling in schools and how we can actually get more children right and actually enjoy the writing. Would you all like to go around and introduce yourself and say who you are and where you're from? Shall we start with you, Osman?
Hi everyone, I'm Osman Mullen. I am a producer who is working on 500 Words this year. Very excited to be part of this initiative, and yeah, it's me.
Hi there.
Hi, my name's Lucy. I'm a primary school teacher in Essex, and we promote the 500 Words at the school I work at. We absolutely love it.
And then Mike, who's got a great job at the web.
I am the director of Mischief at Beano, and at Beano we believe that mischief is a very positive thing, and we like to introduce a little bit of mischief into the process of entering into 500 Words, and the BBC have always been very kind in allowing us to bring mischief to this process. So looking forward to talking about that a little bit.
I think Lucy tells me that I'm creator of Mischief in Head Teacher Chat as well.
Yeah, I'm Simon, a former primary school teacher and founder of Pobble. We are one of the partners of BBC 500 Words. I think it's our third year being involved. Totally aligns with our mission of inspiring children to write. Really excited to be involved again this year and hopefully supporting lots of young writers and busy teachers as well.
Thank you very much. And so we're going to start off trying to talk to Osmond about the ins and outs of the competition, how it works and everything. Osmond, I'm going to just get your slide on stage and then we can go through.
Yeah, so it's the biggest story writing competition for children aged 5 to 11. It's open to children of all abilities and backgrounds, and that's always been our ethos. All it's about is write a story that you would love to read. The brilliant thing about this competition is that spelling, punctuation, and grammar are not marked, so there's no pressure there. And it's all about imagination and creativity. And we really believe that this competition really fosters that love for reading and writing. As part of the submission process, the stories need to be submitted by an adult, and that can obviously be a teacher, parent or guardian, librarian, a sports or club leader, or a community group leader as well. The stories will be judged on the following criteria, which are characterization, plot, originality, language, and enjoyment. There's a couple of things when it comes to your submissions. It can't be a rap or a poem. It has to be prose. The stories shouldn't give any personal details of the child, including their name, the title, or the body of the story. It shouldn't be a recounting of a historical event. You can use a real person or a historical character as a source of inspiration. From a review and evaluation that we did last year, 84% of teachers felt that 500 Words really encourages literacy. 84% of teachers who submitted on behalf of students felt that their students were more engaged with literacy and writing as a result of taking part in the competition. And that's just a really lovely comment you can see there on the screen from one of the teachers. But also just to mention that the competition, one of our partners on the competition is Oxford University Press, who do a report each year. So they collect all the stories, and the reason why that's important, it really helps us to understand language that children are using and how it's been developing over time. It helps us to work out what kids are interested in, from politics to world events to celebrities to football. And it also informs the creation of learning resources and dictionaries for children. And as a result, it's kind of really improving the way that English is taught in schools. Just to quickly run through the prizes, because you've got some fantastic prizes. Each winner will receive a bundle of books, with the gold winners also receiving an incredible 500 books for their school library. The gold, silver, and bronze winners all receive a framed illustration of their books, produced exclusively by a top children's illustrator. Also, as an added incentive, we are offering a £50 book tokens to any schools that enter who have a 50% free school meals or higher. So if they submit any entries, they will receive a £50 book token. Every story that's entered into, we do a random draw, and the person that wins that random draw wins books, a ticket to the final, And also they'll receive 500 books for their school and also a literacy wall art for their schools, which is to really help promote that love for storytelling. Just to finish off, our judges, who've got a fantastic panel of celebrity judges who do the final stage judging. And we've got Henry, Mallory Blackman, Francesca Simon, Charlie Hickson, and Frank Cottrell-Boyce.
I think the statistic that you were talking about, the 84% say is improved writing. That is so important for schools that happens in some ways. The joy of writing is actually improved by doing the 500-word competition. So it's fantastic. Is there anything that school leaders need to know about the program? Because we want to engage more school leaders in the program.
Yeah, I think it's just about finding ways that they can build it into their teaching and into their classroom, and really encouraging teachers to get involved. It would be brilliant to have teacher ambassadors within schools that are really promoting the competition and encourage children to enter. I think the brilliant thing about all the learning resources, which we're going to talk about slightly later, is all of them are actually linked to the curriculum, and we work with educational consultants who consult on all of those resources. So they are all suitable for children. They're all linked to the curriculum, and it's just like a brilliant way for teachers to really inspire that love for writing. And we know that there has been a decline in children that are writing for enjoyment. And I think that's why 500 words is so important, because it can just really help instill that love for writing and really spark that creativity.
And the other real point I'm going to say is it doesn't matter about spelling and grammar, and actually it's open to everyone, and we want everyone to join in.
And that's so important to us, like that this competition just feels completely accessible and children from all abilities can absolutely enter. So there's absolutely no pressure on a child for that, because all we're looking at is the story and the characters in the world.
Thank you, Osman. And is there anything else that people need to know about the 500-word board? It's because there's also a load of resources as well that for the teachers and school leaders to use, isn't it?
Do you want me to talk about that now?
We can talk about it now.
We've got some fantastic resources on our website. We have lots of video content on there. We've got the 500 words live lesson that will be available from the 24th of September. That also always has accompanying activity sheets that are downloadable. You can also view previous live lessons on there. We've got some really inspirational videos from our judges as well as established authors talking about story and character. We've got lovely animated short films that break down storytelling into chunks. All our partners have created some brilliant resources for us. So we've got Beano, who've done their sort of Simco guide, which is really brilliant because it's a step-by-step guide to writing a 500 words story for children. We're also going to have some new story hacks, worksheets as well from Beano. Simon's going to talk to you a little bit about the story starters that Pobble do, but they're also brilliant for getting children started and giving them some inspiration on how they can create a story. We've also got Oxford University Press, who've done a brilliant booklet, which is all about kickstarting story. And we've got lots of kind of downloadable worksheets as well. So we are actually going to have a downloadable pack available on the website where all of these resources are in one place for teachers. This downloadable pack will list all of these resources and it'll say how you can use them as well. So it's just, sometimes it can be like lots of content on our website, but actually what we've thought this year is we're going to put it all into one digital pack where teachers can just look through that and they know exactly where all the resources are and how they can be used. So yeah, that'll be available from September.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Osman. I'm going to bring Mike in now.
Hiya, Jonathan. Yeah, it was a brilliant introduction there. And that's why we love 500 words at Beano, because it's the thing you noted about the accessibility, the amount of quality stuff, the engagement, and then see those stats and those testimonials that just show it's working. And the thing is, I would have loved to have taken part in a competition like this when I was the age of the kids that are getting to do it nowadays. But I'm too old. It wasn't invented then. But the principles of it are so true to everything we believe in Beano. Beano, all the characters are kids, the heroes are kids. And that's the reason why Beano is still here today. A comic that started in 1938 is because we have always put kids first. And the thing we know, and people think I'm just being nice when I say this, but this is absolutely true. All our best ideas for stories come from kids. And so we know about this potential, and sometimes it's we go into a school and we speak to kids and they'll make a chance remark and then we'll build on that and they'll be amazed that they've created a story in the space of a couple of minutes. And sometimes And the kid that's sitting next to the teacher, because the teacher is trying to get them to be, and they think they're maybe going to be disruptive, they'll be the kid that gets engaged the most. And it's just because we are able to really play on that accessibility thing and try slightly more unconventional ways of doing things. And I think what's really advantageous for the teachers involved with things like this is it gives them a bridge into doing that. Osman was saying about how last year, and again, the assets for this are still here, we came up with this idea about the Simmet, which was a comic turned around backwards. And you start with the drawing. And so if you love drawing, it's great because you can draw a character, you can draw a scenario, and that then inspires you to create those 500 words. Thousands and thousands of comic strips, 13 books, a blank page. It doesn't matter how much experience you've got. You know, the kids all say it's intimidating, and it's because of the possibilities. It's the options you have. And what we try to do is we are trying to share as many of own tactics this year and we're calling them our Fab Five. And so it's the tactics we actually use. And they've tried and tested because over the years, I've been 20, I think that's 27 or 28 years. We've met thousands and thousands of kids. So we've shared these and we've tried them. This is the first time we have collected them together and we're calling them story hacks, which we think is quite cool. And it's just illuminating really just the really obvious principles, but doing it in a really fun way. So we've got create a story quickly, just to get something on the page. We've got the principle that all ideas are good, and we're using a dice to decide between them. It's using chance and saying that everything could be brilliant. We're talking about remixing fairy tales. So the story, but remixing every single element. So it's a completely different story. It's new stories from something old, but you'd never even realise what it originally come from at the end. So we're showing that principle. We're doing more about drawing and how you can start this sketch off and you can draw a map, for example, and you can take your character on a walk around that map. We're doing our patented character create. And this is a great thing again, because you can draw it, you can read it, you can write it, you can use it to build up this idea of a character. And it's all the tactics we use with all these memorable characters we've got, and then you can apply it to your story. So it's just, there's so many different ways in, and hopefully my big optimism is that teachers will look at these. They're really easy to see. You know, that they're on a couple of pages, they're really colourful. You can either align specific kids according to their talents with a certain type of thing, or they can let the kids choose themselves. Some of the kids will want to do them all. Some of them will want to mix parts of them. And it's just options. And most importantly, they are all fun and you'll have a laugh using them, and they'll spark a little bit of creativity and give you that accomplishment, because writing a story is just the best thing. You can tell a story. This is moving into writing it down. It's just such a wonderful thing to be involved with. And so we're 100% behind it.
Yeah, and I like the idea, just writing down the ideas and just going for it and not thinking about it too heavily and things like that. When I used to do story writing, that's how I used to get quite a lot of my class to actually do the same thing. Don't worry about it, just write down the first sentence and then get going and things like that.
It's all difficult to do, but once you engender that it's like diving into a cold swimming pool. You know, you look at it, you say, it's that a bit deep, and then you jump into it, and within a couple of seconds, you're swimming about having fun. And that's exactly what this is. Once the kids are doing this process, so many kids that, you know, entered last year come back and they enter again because they love it. And in between, they've been writing loads of stories. And you get so much. It's such a brilliant thing to share, and it builds connection, and it's just creative, and yeah, it's just all good.
So remind us what the 5 hacks are again.
The hacks, we've got the 6-minute story challenge. 6 minutes we picked because it's the average time somebody spends on the toilet. So controversial, that one, but again, the dice of destiny, where we're asking you to come up with 6 ideas really quickly and then let the finger of fate decide. We've got the fairy tale remix. Everybody has been told a fairy tale at some point in their lives. And what we're doing is we're asking you to pick one, and then we are showing you how you can remix every single part of that to create an entirely new story. So I love this one. I really love this one. And then we've got Doodles and Doodles, which is building upon the Simic principle, where you draw a few pictures and then you connect them together into a story and then you turn it into words. So again, that's getting kids who maybe love drawing or think more visually, but also it's letting the kids who love write think about how they can represent their story. Every book's got a cover, hasn't it? And then finally, and this is the one I'm really excited about, we've got the character creator. And what we do in this, and the reason I know this is tried and tested because even I can use it, and it's about, we give all the tips on how to draw a character. The tips are all supported with questions about the different little inspirations and how you can make them look funnier, how you can make them look cuter, and how you can create a name for them. And what this gives you is this gives you a completely new character that you can build into. You could build into 500 stories. This is the way that we create a character for the Beano comic. So this is the way that Dennis was created, Minnie was created, Harsha was created. All our characters, whether new or old, were created in this way. So what we do is we do it into a really scaffolded, and that's a really important word for us in Beano, because comics are a scaffolded reading experience. It's a scaffolded creative experience. And so fun, it's accessible. You see how you can do it, and it's in little bite-sized chunks. The whole time you work on it, you're building very quickly and iteratively. So even I can do it because I can come up with a really good drawing. And sometimes when you can visualize your character, you can see them, you can ask them questions, you can say, what would the character do here? It really helps. And all these things, and this is what the teachers will notice this, and a lot of the kids will pick on this, they're all interconnected. And you'll see how they support things. Some will work for some kids, and others will work for other kids. I'm really confident, again, that one of these hacks will work for every kid.
It sounds brilliant. And this is someone who used to walk around to the newsagent at about 7 years old, picking up my Beano every Saturday morning. I used to love the Beano and still do, and I did it with my children as well. Great fans of the Beano. Thank you, Mike, and those ideas. Brilliant. Really are good. I want to be back in the classroom using them. So, thank you. I'm going to bring Simon to the stage. Simon, I'm sure you would use quite a few of those tips, wouldn't you, as well?
Yeah, I've got my 500 words Buckingham Palace Beano special framed on the wall behind me. What an incentive to make it all the way to the final just to get a copy of the Beano. So many of the things that Mike mentioned are on my list. I will do my best to follow from that.
Hello, Simon. And yeah, Pobble. I mean, we're great fans of Pobble and what you do and how you do things and everything you do. I've used it in my classrooms. I've used it as a school leader. I encourage all the teachers in my school to use it. So can you tell us a little bit more about Pobble and how it works and how it inspires children to do writing?
Yeah, of course. So basically, the reason we're involved is very much around writing inspirations. As a former primary school teacher and leader, I know that writing is tough, and many of the things that Mike mentioned, we will all have tried at some point because we know that some children are very reluctant to put pencil to paper. So one of the ways that we really support schools is by providing images. So I think providing a starting point in a way. So looking at the barriers perhaps of why children don't begin writing their story and what can we perhaps do to help. So, we've made a resource specifically for 500 words, which links with a very popular resource of ours called Pobble 365, where we provide an image, we provide questions to get the children discussing the image, and then we always provide either a paragraph or an opening sentence just to help the children to start writing in the first place. So that's very much the resource element. And then we also, alongside that, run live lessons. One of the things I would encourage schools to do is to think about joining one of our live lessons, where, again, we work through the actual process of writing a story, and again, providing school leaders, teachers with lots of ideas and inspiration along the way as well. Yeah, so that's really our main resource.
Yeah, it's always a tricky one in the classroom, isn't it? When you get it done and you've done well, it's really quite inspiring as a teacher, isn't it? So what things do you encourage children to write brilliant stories?
I always think, I've got my own 2 children now, and reading is really important. And I think sometimes, I taught year 6 and I taught as young as year 1, never quite brave in EYFS. But something I would always do, even with the oldest children, is share short stories with them. A lot of the time in year 5, year 6, you're reading quite long novels. But actually, for something like 500 words, I would be very much picking very short stories, even using some of the examples from 500 words from last year, and actually reading some of those. So again, I think a lot of children write from experience. It's interesting what Mike said about fairy tales. They're very familiar with certain story plans and certain story themes and dilemmas. So again, the more reading of short stories you can do, the better. Something else I would always encourage teachers to do would be to get the children to tell each other stories. I'm a big believer in children being able to say something before they write it down. So whether that's discussing a Pobble 365 image with a partner, discussing a book, discussing things that they're liking at the moment, discussing a game that they're playing, discussing sport. I'll be talking about the Lionesses yesterday, and I'll be getting my children to speak about it. Again, anything that's current to them, that talk element. And then from there, it would be, again, we always talk about like a writer's toolkit. So what tools can we give the child that are going to best support them with writing their own story? And again, many of these things Mike has mentioned, maybe picking one or two characters and really developing that character. I used to try and visualize the story journey, and sometimes it might be a mountain, sometimes it might be a roller coaster where lots of things happen, and some children have lots of dips in their story, and we sort of home into one or two bigger dips that really add to it. Maybe thinking about doing some type of storyboard, again, linking with what Mike was saying about children drawing their ideas before they write them down. And then building upon that, I'd be thinking about things like the setting. So again, where is the story perhaps going to take place? I talk about using your senses to describe the setting, because lots of children are very good at writing down what they see. But again, what might they hear? What might they touch? So again, they're building this language up. We might then develop a word bank, a vocabulary map, words that they might then include in their story. The hardest bit is starting the story. How do we write that first sentence? I would spend a lot of time on them trying to come up with their first sentence, then talking through their first sentence, then drafting them, editing. The final bits, I guess, links a little bit with what you said, Jonathan, about just getting them to write. I think a lot of children are very restricted in a way that they're worried about handwriting, they're worried about spelling, they're worried about punctuation. And I'm a real big believer that we just want children to go for it. So little techniques like, I would ask my children to be really brave with vocabulary choices. And if they were unsure whether they'd spelt the word correctly, that's fine. Maybe underline it, and then we can look at that later. That's absolutely fine. But go for the braver choice. And that trying to be brave with what they're writing down tended to work quite well. So yeah, lots and lots of ideas in there. But I think the key thing is the more tools we can give them, the more reading, the more vocabulary we can help them to have when they get that piece of paper that says, now you're going to write your main story, in my opinion, the better.
What advice would you give to a school leader doing that sort of thing then?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting with the release of the new writing framework a week or so ago. I don't think there's a better time for 500 words to be around in a way. Writing, I think, is going to be more high profile. There's huge focus in there around children writing for pleasure, writing for a purpose. So being a former deputy head, I'd be thinking about how does 500 words fit in nicely with other boxes that I've got to tick. In terms of story writing, interestingly came from, we called it 5 to 9 in my school. Every morning the children, we didn't line up in the playground. They just free-flowed in from about 8:45 to 5 to 9. We always started the day with a short writing task. And it's because writing was always the area of focus within the school. It was always our lowest. So we wanted to do something. So we didn't try and write for hours because some of the children couldn't, but we would do 5-10-minute chunks each morning. It might be writing a sentence. It might be improving a sentence. It might be generating 10 words. And that's obviously where the idea around Pobble 365 came from. Could we give teachers something every single day that would just give their children more opportunity to write? And I think the key takeaway is the more opportunities we give children to write, the more we can help them improve, the more that we can give them more ideas.
I used to do a similar thing when I used to come into early morning class. It used to be the focus, and every morning coming into writing, a similar situation to you. And you didn't put any pressure on what they were writing about or anything like that. You weren't worried about the grammar. You weren't writing very much like the 500 words, isn't it?
I've got schools that I work with that have a Pobble 365 book and the children write, and it's not marked. And it's amazing the impact of just letting children write and then not marking that writing. Suddenly you're removing that barrier for some children of, I'm getting it wrong. Am I getting it right? Actually, we just want them to write as often as possible. So yeah, they're the types of things, if I was back in school tomorrow, I would definitely be reintroduce it.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Lucy in to the stage. I mean, there's so many ideas there, isn't there, Lucy?
Yeah, no, huge. And it's so refreshing to hear like Simon's take on it as well. I think sometimes when you're a teacher in school, you've got a certain thing to hit and you've got a book to read and the kids have to describe that character. And it can be quite restrictive. So just to have opportunities just to write just for pleasure, I think that's really, really important for kids. And it just builds their confidence up particularly.
So, Lucy, from last year, it's a bit of a journey, isn't it?
It's been a whirlwind. Really will try to be quiet during this because I get very excited about 500 words. You might have to cut me at certain points. But yeah, it's just an amazing project. And I think that it's given me as a teacher like a really refreshing approach towards writing and just encouraging children to write. And I think it's just got such an importance for children. So yeah.
Through your school, we followed a bit of a journey from last year. How do you get all the children to be inspired by writing? What do you do in your school to do that?
So in terms of when the 500 words came up, I think I'd just come back from maternity leave and I was really determined to sort of make an impact and get kids to just love writing because I think after COVID, writing stamina had become something of an issue. And so I remember going in and I heard about the 500 words because it had taken a bit of a break for a bit and then it came back and I just promoted it to the children. And I think that's what all schools need. They just need a champion to keep the project going. Otherwise it can disappear into the many other tasks that live in school life. Children entered the 500 word competition, but I said, also give me a copy of the story. And then we were going to celebrate it in school because I think some of our children got a bit nervous about the national stage that the BBC 500 word had, even though they could. It's that self-confidence. And so by doing the dual entry, we as a school said that we would celebrate their stories. As a result, this year or last year as well, we had about 80 entries come through. And then this year we've had 90. So it's just gradually grown. We encourage the children to enter the 500 words. And then we put all of their entries into another book. But inside these books, there's all the stories that the children entered. And it just gave the children that amazing boost to think that their work was worthy of being published and that they were like a published author. They became the illustrators. So over 120 children took part this year. And it's just been phenomenal. And I think that being big fans in our school, we're massive fans of the 500 words. Because so many children entered from our school, 19 of those got shortlisted in the national competition. And because the lovely people at BBC are so kind, they gave that opportunity, those 19 children, to go to Buckingham Palace, see the final this year. So it's just been amazing just to think that just by writing a story, believing in themselves and just giving it a shot, what things can happen. And I think that's one big message I always send home as like a teacher is just to dream big because anything could happen. Just give it a go. I never for a million years thought that that would happen. But it just goes to show that if you just give things a shot, it will be amazing.
And so what sort of tips would you give to another primary school teacher who's thinking about it?
They really need to have a main cog, someone that's going to keep pumping it through, sending those irritating emails to all the teachers going, it's me again, and just really promoting it so much. And I think that as long as they're enthusiastic, they can't really ignore you. Other than the corridor, they might give you the daggers down there. But other than that, they're just going to promote it to their children. And I think that what we found was the ricochet effect in terms of the children that entered last year. BBC Breakfast came to our school. So BBC Breakfast came last year. And then this year we went to Buckingham Palace. And it's just the children were starting to realise like, wow, our writing could make a difference.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes children, as long as you've got that teacher plugging it, otherwise children just foresee writing as just this thing they do in a book and then it gets shut and then they turn the page and off they go again. So I think just having that key person to promote it all the time. They gave us some money towards publishing the book as well. It was like a little, and I think, yeah, they're just the really key thing. Just have a really irritating teacher that's going to keep emailing and get a local company to support you as well because they've been really supportive.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring Osman and Simon back because we're going to talk about the resources that we can use to get, which are available for teachers. We talked a little bit about it earlier, Osman. Is there anything other resources that we've got? We've got the Beano resources as well, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of everything that I mentioned earlier. So we've got videos, we've got worksheets, the new ones, resources that Mike spoke about, which are the story hacks. So there's lots of existing resources, but we've got lots of new resources this year as well, which is great. And as I said, we're going to put them all into one sort of digital pack so that as a teacher, you might be like, oh, well, I've got to look at lots of different areas of the website to get what I want. So it's just going to be one place where teachers can just go to that resource and kind of look at everything that's available and click on it, easily be directed to where they need to be. So I think that will really help to know what's available, how you can use it, and what works for your classroom, really. Videos might work better, some might prefer worksheets, or whatever your preference is, there is a resource.
Simon, how do they get the resources from Pobble as well?
Yeah, so we've made some sort of BBC 500 word specific Pobble 365 starters. And what's been good this year is using the research that comes in from the work of OUP. We've tried to sort of theme the Pobble 365 resources, some lovely input from Osman. There were certain trends of things that children were writing about last year, whether it's technology a bit more, whether it's sport. So we've tried to sort of theme our 500 word starters. There may be that they're a starting point for some of the children to write a story, actually give the children an opportunity to do some writing so that when they do their final piece, as I would call it, they've got a little bit of a basis from which they can go. That's certainly the way I'd be thinking about using it. In addition, as mentioned, Pobble 365 is always free every day, so there are other images there that people can go to the main Pobble site to find. In regards to the competition, we've specifically made, I think it's 6 different, 3 for each age group, and that's really important to identify. There's the 2 different age groups that you can enter, and they're sitting within the BBC 500 word site. We're doing a live lesson on the 15th of October, so that's not directly for BBC 500 words, but we're certainly going to be referencing the competition within that. The reason I mention that, Jonathan, is our live lessons. This one we're doing with the team from TT Rockstars with the Numbots. It's a really nice chance to see an image brought to life and how I would go about turning that into a story. It's a nice one for teachers to sit in and watch and the children to get inspired. And it's a good month before the competition ends if you're looking for a starting point for your sort of 500 words journey. And I hope you don't mind, Osman, me directing people towards that competition, that live lesson as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to mention as well, the BBC one is on the 24th, so it's the day after the competition opens. There's going to be the BBC live lesson, which is one we run every year with 500 words. So that will be available on the website, but schools can stream it live as well. So yeah, there's lots for schools to get involved in, whether it's live lessons, whether it's just looking at the resources and activities for kids to do. So I think there's a lot available.
And I think, Jonathan, just to add, I think meeting lots of the school leaders last year or the teachers, brilliant teachers like Lucy, actually knowing there is so much there, I think almost planning a little bit ahead to when's the deadline and working backwards, because inevitably November arrives and with suddenly a dash of entries at the end. So I think what's nice about the resources is it gives teachers and school leaders a chance to almost plan out 5 or 6 weeks and building towards, exactly as Lucy did, lots of entries at the end. So I think that's the nice thing about all the resources as well.
Bring Mike back into as well, because I feel I'm leaving him out a little bit. It's sort of like I felt like Beano's got some of those resources as well, and the hacks and things to go through.
And there's the stuff we did last year as well, which that I think was very successful. And, did some video content, and me and my friend and colleague, Craig, we talked through creating a character using the invented comic idea. And that's one of those things where a lot of kids respond better to a video or somebody speaking to them. But I do think the thing that Simon said there about, if every teacher could be like Lucy, it would be incredible. But what always gives me a lot of encouragement is that when I started on Beano, I had formerly worked on a teen mag, and we did a lot of market research speaking to kids. And when I started on Beano didn't do it. It's all in the minds of the creators. And I said, we need to start speaking to kids. And none of the schools would let us in. And you can't have the Beano in our schools, right? But obviously, head teachers like you, Jonathan, that were reading Beano when you were a kid, that has all completely thawed. And now we cannot satisfy every request we get, and we do stuff when the opportunity arises, and do events at festivals and things like that where we get to speak to kids. I do think, I used that phrase earlier about how it's not rocket science, and I think we're very open about that, in terms of Beano, and I think we have a mandate to speak that way. I hope that we give teachers who want to follow in your footsteps easy jump on points. I think Simon's content absolutely does that as well on a daily basis, which is fantastic. So it's that thing, it's where people can hook onto, you can have the conversation. And what a lovely conversation it is to have, Jonathan. If a head teacher said to the kids, I read that when I was your age. Wow. You can do that with books, you can do it with, but see, finding that common point and that piece of connection. It's incredible and it's really empowering. But we do, I mean, Lucy will be pleased to know this. Nowadays, we do reflect what teachers are like in the here and now in the comic. And there's still a couple of great ones, but you'll see that the kids love Miss Mystery. You know, Dennis's teacher, she was a Bash Street kid when she was a kid. So she knows it. None of them can outwit her, but she's got that ability to think, kid, and make things fun the same way that you do. And that's how she brings the best out of them. Don't worry about the spelling. You can underline it if you're a little bit. Just being really open about that sort of stuff's just brilliant, because that is the barrier. Being perfect is the barrier. And kids adjust as they go into school where rules are suddenly getting imposed upon them. And I know that's for good reason a lot of the time, these rules, but sometimes they conflate the rules that are really important and that they need for their own safety with imposing rules upon themselves when it comes to being creative. And I think an organisation like the BBC 500 words, it breaks down these barriers again, and stuff like what Simon and Lucy's attitude, brilliant, it all fits in.
And I'm going to ask Lucy, how do whole schools celebrate the 500 words then? What are the best tips to schools to doing that?
I think the one thing that was really powerful was when we asked the children to enter the 500 words, but also to give us a copy of their stories. And then from it, whatever the school wants to do, it was just, they could put together like a book and they could publish their stories. That's really powerful, like we did. It could just be an assembly where they just acknowledge the children who have entered. It could be anything. And I think it's whatever best suits your school and your children and would work well for them. I just think that for any teacher out there, it's just worth its weight in gold, the 500 words. It gives the children the love of their writing. I've never known children so. When the BBC 500 words was launched last year, I will always remember that all the children were coming up to me going, I've got my entry, I've got it ready. And it was just that excitement over literacy and writing. And it was a fulfilling moment for me as a teacher. For any other teacher out there, I would really honestly say, just give it a go. Get those children to send their story to you as well, and then you can celebrate it however you want. Honestly, you could do a book. It's really decent. It's phenomenal. And then I remember, where you get as a teacher, sometimes things can get a bit challenging. And I remember parents, when I sent the books out to the children who had entered, and they all got a copy. What happened was the parents were sending me pictures of the children reading the book. And it was what someone said earlier about how reading the entries or children reading their own stories kind of thing's really powerful. And it just made me realize that you can make such a difference to a child's life by just thinking slightly outside the box and sort of stepping away maybe from the restraints that school provision sometimes puts in place and just giving it a go.
And Osman, what are the key dates that we need to remind people of? So when does the competition start again?
Yeah, so it's going to be open for entries from 8 a.m. on Tuesday, the 23rd of September. And the deadline is Friday, the 7th of November at 9 p.m. So please make sure you get registered in on time.
And how do people enter?
So from the 23rd of November, when you go onto the BBC 500 Words website, you will see a submit your entry button, literally, and you just click onto that and it'll take you onto the sign in page. And as a teacher, you'll have to sign up and set up an account, and then you can submit entries. It should be pretty straightforward, but yeah, it'll all be kind of on our website.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Like talking about writing. Thank you for joining us, and make sure you join in with the BBC 500 Words. It is such a great competition. The prizes are amazing, and the best thing about it is that it's open to everyone. And make sure that everyone joins in and love writing. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye.
And take care.
Street.